Welcome back to Over 50 and Flourishing. I hope your week is getting off to a great start. My guest today wants to make sure it is. She's here if you are looking for a midlife pivot. Jenna Capozzi brings more than 30 years of executive experience, having led innovative projects for brands like Samsung, Target, and BMW. She's also produced notable films and television shows. Now, transitioning from the spotlight of Hollywood to empowering the next generation of leaders, she leverages her extensive background to guide women 40 plus toward impactful leadership, to live life on your own terms. Who don't want to do that? Committed to the idea that leadership and purpose are crucial for lasting change. Okay, let's face it, there is nothing worse than going into your closet, staring and trying to figure out what to wear. If you're like me and you like a timeless classic, you like something that's elegant and well-made, then let me introduce you to Jenny Kane. Jenny Kane is just that, kind of the quintessential California vibe attire. Beautiful pieces. They're really known for their sweaters. Now that we're into the summer months, something like the Foster cotton sweater. It's kind of your everyday slouchy sweater. I love it in ivory. They've got shoes and accessories. They even have things for your house. I mean, we're talking about perfectly curated decor and beautiful candles. I could go on and on, but really, why should I? You can find your new uniform at jennykane.com. Our listeners get 15% off your first order when you use code Dominique 15 at checkout. That's 15% off your first order. JENNIKAYNE.com. Promo code Dominique 15. Let getting dressed be one less thing to worry about. Summer is here. Temperatures are heating up, but your body odor should not. Nip it in the bud with Lumi. Lumi, one of my favorite products. Love the deodorant, powered by mandelic acid to deliver incredible 72-hour odor control. And I mean everywhere on your body, from your pits to your feet and everywhere in between. Whole body deodorant created by an OB-GYN, baking soda free, paraben free, and pH balanced. Lumi Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and those deodorant wipes I was telling you, and free shipping. As a special offer for my listeners, all new customers get 15% off Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals to more than 40% off their starter pack. Use code OVER50 for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code OVER50 at LUMIDEODORANT.com. Jenna Capozzi, thank you for joining us today on Over 50 and Flourishing. You know, I love connecting with women across the country, across the world, women who are reaching out and wanting to empower other women, especially women, you know, in this demo. And I know you're targeting women 40 plus in leadership skills and that area. And your background is so extensive and so fascinating. You know, I was reading about it. I thought, oh my gosh, she's done this and she's done that. And wow, honestly, it kind of blew my head off, all the stuff that you've been a part of. It's super cool. So who better than to explain your background than you? So go ahead and tell us about, advertising, marketing, television, film, on and on and on. It's pretty cool, Jenna.
I know it's the more that I do these podcasts, the more that I learn more about myself. I go, wow, I really did that. It was many lives. You know, it all started at a really young age. I lost my father when I was 2 years old. So I was raised by, a single mom. It was me, my mom, and my sister. And my mom was an entrepreneur at heart and always sort of out creating the difficult situations that she would find herself in. Dad died, got a boyfriend. He's took all her money. Now she's in another frustrating situation. And she ended up taking a job with my uncle, who is a famous jazz singer, and we literally toured the world. From age 3 to 5, I, was in 5-star hotels and room service and late night clubs, and not a normal life for a child. But what inspired me to even head into the arts was when my uncle would bring me up on stage and I would see the audience. And I would see that reaction he would create with the audience, which was literally pure elation and joy. And I remember thinking, I think I was 7 years old at the time, going, I want to do that. I want to create that effect on a large group of people. And that is what really kicked off my interest in show business. It's all I knew. I came from a very non-traditional family, which was, if I had chosen to be a doctor or a lawyer, I would have been kicked out of the family. Instead, it was, you better be an artist. So it's like the complete opposite. Yeah.
I love that.
So, yeah. So, nepotism is real. My uncle had quite a career for himself and many
Can I ask who your uncle is?
Yeah. His name was John Hendricks. He was part of a bebop group called Lambert, Hendricks and Ross. And if in the jazz world, very well known.
Very well known.
Yeah. Charlie Parker gave him his start. And when I was a kid, it was Uncle Dizzy and Uncle Miles. And I would sit on Uncle Dizzy's lap, Dizzy Gillespie, that is, and play with his cheeks. And I was around Thelonious Monk and Sarah Vaughan and all these people. This was my childhood, which I really didn't know who I was with or who I was around until I was 18 taking a jazz appreciation class. And holy smokes, I had an opportunity. Yeah. But my uncle was very loved by a director named Ron Shelton, who directed a movie called White Man Can't Jump. And I was 19 at the time, and my uncle asked Ron, hey, can my niece come and work on the movie? And he said, absolutely. So I was able to assist Ron and watch this whole movie unfold. I'm actually an extra. I'm in a couple of scenes. You could sort of get a glimpse of me here and there if you know where to look. But that is where the love for the movie business began. And then
where did it? I mean, obviously you had this entree through the family. What did you wind up doing? Did your career start in the film industry?
Yes. So I was 19 when I started on that film, and I fell in love. I really did. I loved everything from the person at the craft service table to the catering people to the grips moving the big, and this was film in these days. So, there was a lot more equipment, a lot more people needed, where nowadays it's all digital, as we know, but it was a different world. I'm sure you're very familiar with that.
Yep.
And from there, I studied it in college. I got into NYU Film School. I was part of a very specialized program at NYU. So I wasn't in Tisch Film School. It was a piloted program that ended up becoming the New York Film Academy, which is what we have today. And it was students from all around the world that, they only had 5 directors, 5 camera people, and 5 lighting people. We would create these amazing films. But while I was there, I met a guy who was in the program who happened to be a receptionist for Martin Scorsese's company. And he was my true hero and as a director, and I still love Martin Scorsese films. And I had an opportunity to wait in the lobby for 5 hours to meet Mr. Scorsese, to ask him one question, which was, what should I do? What's that one piece of advice you would give me? And he said, just do it. Just go make films. And I will tell you, that piece of advice has literally threaded its way through my life, which is probably why I've had many opportunities. I'm sure you can relate to that viewpoint of like, right? Launch. You have to dive in, launch. Show up, do. And especially for women midlife, where there's huge changes that have to happen. I was listening to your podcast about midlife and reinvention, and I was thoroughly inspired because I had a tear in my eye as I was going, yeah, those big changes. Yeah, you just have to do it and go for it.
Right. And they can be scary as all heck. I mean, that, Jenna, at any phase or stage in life. But I think, the older we get and our roots run a little bit deeper and we get a little more tied to a certain way of doing things. And there's comfort and maybe, a little complacency that comes in all of that. So that midlife pivot and making that hard right turn can seem a little scary, because it's not like we're in our 20s when we're expected to just launch off of that, launch pad. It's a little odd at this stage in life. So, we're going to talk a lot about how you're helping women in this stage, but I want to also learn a little bit more, because you grew, through the film industry. You became a part of a lot of really big projects. So go ahead and list some of the things that you did.
Yeah, no problem. It does seem like a lifetime ago. So I sort of,
I know.
Yeah. So after that, I had a lovely experience to work at Woody Allen's post-production company under Helen Robin, and worked on a film called Bullets Over Broadway. And that was my first sort of Oscar, we had Oscar winners in that film. And I remember realizing, wow, my career's coming rather easily to me. This is my first major film out of film school, and I landed there. And then from there, I ended up moving back home, which was San Francisco. And I got a job on the TV show Nash Bridges, starring Don Johnson and Cheech Marin. Yes. So I was on that for 6 years. And that was really where I learned everything. Any type of problem that could occur on a TV show happened on that show. Anything. Any
like what were the malfunctions?
I mean, to the stunt driver forgetting to pull the emergency brake, and the Hemakuda, which is the car that Don drove, just starts rolling right into San Francisco Bay, which, it's quite a fine, to drop a car into the Bay of San Francisco, to, hey, we need to blow up a building in 2 days, go find one. So how do you blow up a building and get a permit? We had to, get those things, to weird lawsuits, or the tabloids saying certain things about, the cast and crew and having to control that. So I was 23 years old when I started on that TV show.
Wow. I
was the only woman in the producer's office. This is in the mid 90s. It was a very, a different time. I had a lot of what my mom likes to say, chutzpah. So, I just went for it, but I learned everything, and I ended up being, wearing many different titles. And I was just hungry to learn every aspect of production, because to be a successful producer, my thinking was to know how to do it all. And I really did. I learned a lot. And after that, I went over to Pixar Animation Studios right across the bay, and I got to work on Monsters, Inc. That was my first Pixar film.
Oh, I've only watched that 100 times when Styles was a young kid. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
It was amazing. I mean, for animators, it's an incredible place to work. For a producer, we worked on the hair of Sully, the blue monster, for like 6 months, so to go from live action blowing up buildings and cars falling into the water to let's focus on this piece of hair, it wasn't as exciting, but a great place to learn. And I wanted to learn animation, and you learn it from the best. So I got to work on Nemo, and I got to work on Cars for a little bit. And
oh my gosh, you're just bringing it all back.
Yeah. And Cars was great because John Lasseter at the time had heard that I was very close with Cheech Marin. I had worked with Cheech. I had produced projects with him. I would assist him from time to time. And so, I'm
Wait, which car was he? He was
the lowrider.
The lowrider.
The lowrider.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. And so John had pulled me into his office, and he said, "Hey, I heard you have a connection with Cheech Marin." I said, "I do." I was really nobody at Pixar, so it was quite shocking to be brought up into his office. And he said, could you get me a meeting? And I said, sure. And that's how Cheech got the part of Cars. So that was very interesting. But it was a time when, Steve Jobs was still part of a Pixar, and he would come and do these town meetings. It was a very iconic time. I don't think I realized it at the time, but looking back, it really was. And then from there, I went to LA and started working on TV shows. But what I realized as I was approaching my early 30s now at this point, that I couldn't conceive how I could live a healthier lifestyle, because my lifestyle in the 20s really included a lot of drug taking, partying. The more that I would do, the more I would get promoted. It was the life in Hollywood. It was crazy. It's what allowed me to work 100-hour weeks. But as my early 30s, I was like, no, I had a big wake up call. I wanted to change that. And I also wanted to have a family. And I didn't know, how do you work that lifestyle and be a sane mom? And so in 2007, I started my own production company. And the idea was to create marketing content for brands, but brands that were in the $10 million to $20 million range, the brands that couldn't afford an advertising agency retainer, the ones that needed all my services. And it was great. I mean, it was quite funny though, because, at the time it was really about blogs and keywords. And I would literally have to give a seminar for an hour on why video was important. This is for YouTube, right?
Exactly.
Facebook. Yeah. It was
That's
amazing.
Funny. You were having to pitch video hard, and now look at it.
And really hard, right?
You're talking big companies like Samsung, Jenna. Who else?
Well, Samsung came later. So when I started, I did do a few things for Target. I did stuff for VH1, if you remember VH1.
Of course, watch them
Yes.
diligently.
Yes. And I did stuff for BMW, but these wouldn't be necessarily their main commercials. This would be their other projects for marketing content. It was just, Facebook was just starting, iPhones were just starting. It was more video content for websites was take off. Knew they had to create content, but didn't really know how. So, yeah.
Right.
So,
what amazing. I mean, I feel like we're only scratching the surface with your background. And it's just so cool. I mean, I think everybody and I find this to be true with what I do as well. Everybody loves kind of the behind the scenes, what's it like? What's it like in that business? And what are the people like? What does it take to make all of that happen? But you speak to something, and there is a thread that is weaving through all of this. And that is hunger, tenacity, pursuit, sticking it out, assessing, pivoting, reprioritizing. And I think if I were a guessing person, it has probably led you to your philosophy and your belief system today about women in leadership and why you are targeting a certain group. And we're really, really going to dive into that because you have gleaned so many valuable skills in your life experience that you now want to impart and share with others. So, Jenna, we're going to take a real quick break, thank our sponsors, and kind of break down what it is that you're teaching women to help them be leaders in the workforce right on the backside of this. Okay, let's face it, there is nothing worse than going into your closet, staring and trying to figure out what to wear. If you're like me and you like a timeless classic, you like something that's elegant and well-made, then let me introduce you to Jenny Kane. Jenny Kane is just that, kind of the quintessential California vibe attire. Beautiful pieces. They're really known for their sweaters. Now that we're into the summer months, something like the Foster cotton sweater. It's kind of your everyday slouchy sweater. I love it in ivory. Also, I'm checking out the linen Dylan sweater, kind of the V-neck slouchy sweater too. I want to get that for the summer. And I'm absolutely obsessed with the Rio slip dress. That's kind of your spaghetti strap, free-flowing, beautiful dress. You can pair it with sandals. And oh, by the way, they've got those too. They've got shoes and accessories. They even have things for your house. I mean, we're talking about perfectly curated decor and beautiful candles. I could go on and on, but really, why should I? You can find your new uniform at jennykane.com. Our listeners get 15% off your first order when you use code Dominique15 at checkout. That's 15% off your first order. JENNIKAYNE.com, promo code Dominique15. Let getting dressed be one less thing to worry about. Summer is here. Temperatures are heating up, but your body odor should not. Nip it in the bud with Lumi. Lumi, one of my favorite products. They've got deodorants for the full body wipes. I personally take those with me to work, and anytime I feel like I need a fresher up, I just use the wipes. Love the deodorant, powered by mandelic acid to deliver incredible 72-hour odor control. And I mean everywhere on your body, from your pits to your feet and everywhere in between. Whole body deodorant created by an OB-GYN, baking soda free, paraben free, and pH balanced. Win-win. Lumi Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and those deodorant wipes I was telling you, and free shipping. As a special offer for my listeners, all new customers get 15% off Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals to more than 40% off their starter pack. Use code OVER50 for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code OVER50 at LUMIDEODORANT.com. Welcome back. You are listening to my guest, Jenna Capozzi, today on Over 50 and Flourishing. She has quite a career in television and film and advertising, and we've been unpacking that career prior to this break. So interesting. And it's fascinating to me, just the opportunities that came about back then. And you and I both kind of went through similar experiences. The industries were very, very different back then, and the paths and the trajectories were I think unique. You don't see the same opportunities for people, or at least it's very, very rare. So you've been able to achieve just enormous success in your career. And when we last left off, you were talking about some brands that you had worked with and had started your own firm. So that was a pivot in your life. Talk about the impetus for that. I'm curious as to why you shifted.
Yeah, I think I really started to look at what was the next decade going to be. I feel like I lived my life in decades. Like the 20s were a specific decade. I was now in my early 30s. And I knew that even though I hadn't found my husband at the time, I knew marriage was in store for me. I knew kids were in store for me. And I knew that the lifestyle that I had was not going to be conducive to that. And so I thought, well, let's just start my own company. And funny enough, even though I had a very supportive out of the box family, it was a bit frowned upon. I think they were just nervous for me and going after it. I'd never run a business before, but I did have the self-confidence that I could accomplish something since I had accomplished so much already. And honestly, I think I was just naive. And I think that was good in some ways because
I was going to say, sometimes it's a blessing.
Yes, I didn't have all the fears and I just sort of went for it. And at the time, funny enough, I was friends with Grant Cardone, who is a very large force right now in marketing in the business world. And I met with him and I said, Grant, what do I do? He's like, just go sell. I said, okay. And almost like a robot, I just started selling. And I did about $650,000 in the first 6 months of my business in producing content. I know. And I was pregnant. So I was like, okay, I think I have something.
You were literally pregnant in every way. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But because it was such a simple, just go sell and just communicate, I had no back off on just sort of picking up the phone and calling people. And because I knew that I could help people and I knew that I could service people. And I knew that I had all this experience that really lent itself to companies to have the confidence to invest in me. It made sense, right? Take someone from Hollywood who's been doing it. And now she's bringing it to the marketplace. And I was really one of 3 companies at the time that was doing it. And I was also the only female company. And who are the buyers? It's the females. So women. Yeah, so it was a good leg up for me. And I did that for about 16 years until COVID.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then I know we were talking before the podcast even started. So you were in LA that whole time. COVID hits and you became a Texan, my dear. How exciting.
I love Texas. Yes. We loved it. We had such a good time.
Yes.
Yeah, we had to get out of California. It was getting a little crazy on the parental rights. And so we moved to Texas and we loved it. And the timing couldn't have been better. It was literally February 1st, 2020, we arrived. And Texas was a good place to be. Especially Dallas, because Dallas had dealt with that sort of Ebola. I think they had some sort of situation 5 years prior. So they were really used to paying attention on what it is that they needed to do during that time. But my business suffered because I had all these shoots lined up that I couldn't do. I just couldn't do.
Right. Everything shut down. How did you handle that? I mean, that a lot of people lost businesses during that time.
I lost my business, but funny enough, and this is so ridiculously, I don't even know what to call this, but 3 days after the shutdown, I got a reach from LinkedIn, of all places, of a headhunter going, hey, Sony Pictures is looking for a producer in Dallas to help them come up with how we're going to film during this virtual period. Are you interested? I was like, yeah. Yeah. And I worked at a company called Funimation, which is now Crunchyroll. It's the largest distributor of anime across the planet. And I got to come in and help build the team. And it was a fantastic team. Working with production teams in Dallas was phenomenal. Every production team I worked with, the manners were gorgeous. You know, the responsibility, showing up, you know, it was just such a great team to work with. And, you know, I had 4 months to figure out how they were going to still do a Comic-Con because Comic-Cons are big for them virtually. We did it. We got 68,000 people to attend this Comic-Con. And it was an amazing command center in my house for 4 days. And we killed it. And we got like the first experiential word of taking a Comic-Con, you know, online or whatever. And that was an amazing sort of milestone for me because I hadn't been so much in the online world and the internet and the digital world and really creating audiences and sort of taking what I knew what to do in the practical world and apply it into the digital world. It worked. And then after that, I was picked up by an ad agency in Dallas called Chael, which is a phenomenal ad agency. And their main client was Samsung.
Mm-hmm.
So that was how I connected to
Yes.
Samsung. And I was executive producer over there and created incredible products with them. And we won 4 Addy Awards from them. And it was great. And it was a sort of, it was after that I retired from the industry. It was it was a perfect sort of ending to.
It was a nice bow on top, and what all different facets. It seems like you almost came full circle as the industry was changing and developing. You were kind of riding that wave on in, which I love. And there's a path to that, and I want to talk about now because you left us. You're not in the Dallas area anymore. You moved again. You're in Florida, and your family is thriving, and now you're empowering women. And my goodness, you have such a story and such expertise. And as I listen to your story, the one truth that rings out to me is a complete lack of fear. Now, you may have had it, but you never acted on it, right? That's not to say certain scenarios were scary as heck. Obviously, they were. But you abandoned fear and you went for it. And it's exactly what you talked about at the beginning of this podcast. So I'm real curious as to what you have now put together and structured for women over 40, because you're reaching women at a point where either they may have had something and, lost it in COVID, or maybe they devoted their time to their families and now they want to reemerge and they're not quite sure how or what or where to go or where to start. So walk me through that dialogue of how that works with women.
Yeah, it was March of last year. I was driving to a client and I remember thinking, I am so bored and I'm not doing anything that's really impacting any sort of change. And here I am raising a teenage boy and a young daughter. And I look around at the world and I go, man, like we need to do more. I need to do more. I need to do more. And for me in my life so far, there have been very few women that have failed me. I have found my women friends, to my mom having to survive, to other family members, to be these leaders. And what I've observed from women, and not to say that there's not men out there that do a fantastic job, but I can only know what I know. And my experience in life has been that women seem to go, my friends at least, go an extra step to really make sure that someone is helped, or really, come to someone's aid, or stand up on stage and communicate, or go on a podcast and communicate over here, or go to someone's house to help. And I thought, okay, this group needs to be served. How could I serve them? Because if I can have more leaders around the world that are sane, that can get their message out there, I feel like we might have a chance at really changing this world. I mean, look at you and what you're doing and your podcast and what you do in news and everything. You've been a voice. You've been what they say in Australia, a tall poppy, standing up and communicating. And I like that. It's a good one, right? It's a good one. They say don't be a tall poppy in Australia. And I said, no, it's good. The Americans like to be tall poppies.
No, it's a good thing.
Exactly.
Right.
But I see that and I said, wow, there's all these incredible women that aren't getting out there. They're not getting known. They don't have enough of an audience. They don't have those marketing tools, the way to do that. And you know what? They shouldn't get mired down in that. They have a message and a game that they're doing. And so as I was driving, I was sort of reminded in my bored state that I did have a vision about 4 years earlier that I was going to take all of what I know and help others who are leaders impact change by getting their voice out there, by teaching them more marketing, by helping them with more products or whatever it would take to get them out there. But I had forgotten it until I was bored that day driving in my car and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Yeah. And so I left my very cushy, well-paid client and decided to just go for it. And I had to dive in. I had to dive in and teach myself. I had to start reading some books and really understand what I wanted to do online as the savings account was getting less and less and less. I got offered 4 movies during that time, which would have paid me a lot of money to go produce. And I kept saying, no, this is the next half of my life. I could go do a movie and make $100,000, but I'm going to be right back to where I'm at. Like, no.
Yeah.
So that's really my purpose behind it, is I do want to build a global community of leaders and have them be able to really impact change.
Yes. And I love how you honored that. It's so easy to succumb to temptation, whether it be financial, whether it be comfort and familiarity. And you dug in your heels and you said, nope, this seed has been planted and I'm going to pursue. But what an unusual role now, taking what you've experienced and now formulating a way to communicate it and affect change in others. So how are you helping women sort of recognize that within themselves and not only recognize it, but then act on it?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I've observed in working with my clients now. A lot of them have purpose. I want to help. I want to uplift society. And they confuse that with thinking that's their goal. So they don't really have a clear goal. They have a beautiful purpose, but they don't have a clear goal of what they want to achieve, something that can be started and sort of changed and stopped. Like, is it to have a profitable jewelry line that, all the, 10% of the proceeds go to this? Or is it, they want to coach some executives or whatever it is? They sort of missed that. They just kept sticking to their purpose. And what that does is it makes the goal very vague and they don't know where they're going. And so you have a tendency to then shoot off in different directions, or you have a very long battle plan list that's all very color coded with little stickies on it that you're going to get all these things done, but you don't even know if those are the right things that's leading to it. So my point is, I really help them define their goal and then define a strategic plan. Most people operate in tactics, which are the doingnesses. I got to go to the grocery store and I'm going to get this and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's like, okay, but hold on. What is that overarching strategic plan that's going to be like the next 5 years, the next 10 years, I like to say the next 50 years, we're at that midway point. Even though I did have a doctor say that at 35, I was midway point of life. I terribly disagreed with him. I was extremely insulted.
Oh my gosh. We've come a long way. We still have a long way to go, but at least those days are behind us.
Yes. Well, I had geriatric pregnancies, as they like to call it, since I had my first at 36 and my second at 45. But,
Well, hello. Okay. Yeah, I was 38. I'm with you.
Exactly. Career women. Yeah. But yeah, that's right. Mostly what I do with women. But the other thing that I realized is that we do a lot and we are busy. Whether the age of our children, we run a household, we have a job, we do this. Women have a tendency to keep themselves very busy. And I realized that in order to really make progress and get products, I have my clients take 5, which is called 5 days. And I do these retreats, partially because I like to travel, but also partially because when I'm removed out of the home and I'm with like-minded, I can get a lot done. So for instance, I just did a retreat recently, 5 days, and they designed their own online course. We wrote it, we filmed it, we edited it all in 5 days. And now we're just finishing out the marketing. So I take women out of their environment. We go to some gorgeous place. We get our products done. We have a good time. We have laughter. There's camaraderie. There's support. And that's really how I'm supporting women in this phase. I do some coaching, but really I get them out of their environment to get what it is that they need to get done, customized for their business.
There's so much clarity that comes in that. I've always said that women take on so much and take care of so little. It is, we bleed ourselves dry and we spread ourselves way too thin. And I think in those environments, we can't even identify our purpose. I think the waters are murky. It is confusing. And it's like, well, I know I like this and I think I'm good at this. And I think I might want to do that. But I agree with you. I think you have to be removed from the minutia and that cycle and that pattern of habitual motoring through life to really get in tune with, who am I? What did God put in me? What are my God-given talents and passions? What is my purpose? I think that a lot of women even struggle to answer that question, let alone strategize and come up with goals and planning. And I think, and maybe you can speak to this because, okay, let's say we removed the woman, we've gotten her to a place where she can identify the purpose. I think we do the same thing with our goals. I think we overdo it probably. We tend to put too much pressure, too much detail, and and bury ourselves again in task mastering. So how do you help a woman figure out her goals once she's identified her purpose?
Yeah, it is a conversation. It takes me about an hour and a half to 2 hours with somebody to just hone it in, because you're all
I
those
bet.
things you said is exactly the pattern. And then there's also this perfectionism that comes up for women quite often, not everybody, but quite often. And it paralyzes them from even any sort of doing this. I'll give you an example.
Mm.
There's a woman who I worked with recently. She's amazing. And we were doing a goal finding, and her goal was, I want to make $100,000 a month. I said, that's not your goal. And she said, that's absolutely my goal. I said, it's not your goal. She was like, no. I mean, she started getting mad with me. Like, my goal is $100,000 a month. This is exactly my goal. And I said, it's not. She said, why do you keep saying that? I said, because if it was your goal, you would go down the street right now and turn some tricks, and you probably make 5 to 10 G's a day. So that is not your goal. And she went, oh
Good point.
my God, you're right. And so then we unpacked it as far as what her goal is.
Interesting. And I'm so curious. I'm glad she didn't go that route.
Exactly. It was a wake-up call.
Glad. But I'm sure it was. But what an interesting epiphany. And I'm so curious to discover what was that goal. So we're going to learn about that right after we take a quick break and thank our sponsors. You're listening to Jenna Capozzi, who's helping women over 40 flourish in real big ways. Stay with us. Let's face it, our hair gets thinner as we age, and not everybody wants to use products with chemicals in it to help with hair regrowth. If you're looking for a more natural route but results driven, let me introduce you to Vegamore, and it makes sticking to my hair routine easier, and I'm finally getting the results that I have been wanting. Thicker, fuller, healthier looking hair. Vegamore products are 100% cruelty free, and they are never formulated with those potentially harmful chemicals like parabens or hormones. So easy to use. I use the Grow Hair Serum, and I use it in the morning when I'm styling my hair before I kind of blow it out and get ready for work. You can even do it at nighttime after you've showered and before you're blow dry. It's really up to you, but the key is consistency. When you stay consistent, you will see results in about 3 months. And when you sign up for the monthly subscription, you get 1 bottle, or you can get 3 bottles sent. Obviously, the more you order, the more you save. Fun fact here, Vegamore sells a bottle of Grow Hair Serum every 15 seconds on their website. That's how good this stuff is. Elevate your hair wellness routine this year with Vegamore. For a limited time, get 20% off your first subscription order by going to vegamore.com/over50 and use code over50 at checkout. That's vegamore.com/over50. Code over50 to save 20% on your first order. vegamore.com/over50. Code over50. Welcome back, everybody. My guest today is Jenna Capozzi. She has spent practically her entire career in the television, film, and advertising industry. Just an exceptional resume. My gosh, just if you rewind and just go back to the beginning of this podcast, you got to learn about all the different shows that she was a part of and just her trajectory and rise in the business. And it's just so wonderful and fascinating. And really, congratulations on the success that you've experienced, your ability to pivot when times called for pivots. You know, you rose to the occasion and you shifted and really made the most out of industry shifts as well. And it's a natural that a seed was planted in you to want to help women do the same thing and to acknowledge that. And so before the break, we were talking about the distinction between goals and purpose. So you were sharing a story of a woman who told you that she wanted to make $100,000 a month. And you kept saying, that's not your goal. That's not your goal. So walk us through and let us know how all of that ended. So I'm so curious about her story, Jenna.
So then I asked her, I said, tell me a time that you helped somebody and it made you feel really good. And she said, oh. And she said, well, there was this time where I was giving a lecture about branding, about how to really brand yourself. And I said, well, is this a lecture you normally do? She said, no, it just happened to be something that I was asked to do because she was an actress. And she's like, I had never given a lecture on it before, but I gave it. And I was so moved because I really felt like I helped the people in the room. And I said, interesting. I said, let me paint a picture for you. What if you have your own podcast? What if you have your own course? Do you think there's anything that you're an expert in that you can help out? And she's like, no, I don't really think I'm an expert. And I said, do you give advice to people daily? or like to your friend or to your kids or to anybody? And she said, yeah, like all the time. I said, great, then you're an expert. Because
exactly. Welcome to that world.
I'm like, if you've helped somebody, if you know that you can help somebody with something, you're an expert.
Yes.
It might not be 8 billion people. It might be 2,000 people, but I bet you there's other people who have that problem. What is it? And so then we started to unpack it from there. So every time I try and get to the core of what someone's goal is, I try and find out where have helped another. Because when you help somebody else, man, does that feel good.
You bet it does. And you just brought up an incredibly valid point. And I think this is a deterrent for so many women because they say, I don't have the degree. I don't have the expertise. I don't have the background. Who's going to believe me? Who's going to think I'm an authoritative figure? And you just brought up a very valid point. If you have helped somebody and you have affected change and made an impact, you are that authoritative figure. And you first have to get over that mental hurdle, don't you?
That's right. And I was at a conference last October, and the speaker on the stage said, how many people here are going to sell their program for $500 or less? And about 80%, well, I would say about 65% of the room raised their hand. And he said, how many people here are going to sell their program for over $1,000? And there was a percentage that raised their hand as well. And he said, okay, the ones who are going to sell for under $500, can you please raise your hand again? And he said, look around the room. How many of them are women? Now, will the people who raise their hands for the $1,000? Now look how many of those are. And he said, women, I bet you guys have a PhD, 14 degrees, well-educated, helped people, and you're going to charge less than $500. And I bet you those guys watched a couple of YouTube videos and they're totally confident to sell it over $1,000. Now, he was being kind of funny. I'm sure some of those men had more experience, but point taken. And this is something that I have to go over with my clients in them doing their pricing or their offers to know what their self-worth is.
Why do we devalue ourselves like that? Why do we not think we are worthy enough?
You know, it's interesting, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I do feel that we have, especially you and I have, and women our age, have come up in a world of business that has been established by men and runs like men. I'll give you an example. I'm the breadwinner. I also run the household. I'm the mom. I do a lot of duties where I have a really good friend of mine. He's a man. He's an entrepreneur. He has a fantastic wife, and he's bragging to me on how well he's doing. You know, he's poking at me a little bit, but we have that loving relationship. And I said, yeah, but dude, you have a wife. Like, it's amazing. You have like so much more support. And he looked at me and he said, you're totally right. And I think, especially for us growing up in business, there was no room for anything personal that you had to take care of. You just had to do it all. And so now, and this is what I'm trying to help my my clients with, is like, we don't have to operate that way. You can actually get it all done by getting it done more effectively and getting it done more efficiently and still being present for your family. And that's really not a line of crap. It actually is true. But what I see happens is that a lot of women have a tendency to think so much about them doing something instead of just doing it. And that thinking takes days, or it takes hours, or there's maybe this or maybe that, and I really try and press upon them, just don't think, just do. It doesn't matter. Just do the podcast, just do the post.
Right. Time is wasted in all of that vacillating and what if this and what if that. You can what if yourself to death, but you don't know until you go. So I'm totally with you on that. And I love also, you know, we're talking about leadership roles and you're helping to create leaders in women. And I think it's worth noting that leadership roles exist in all areas. Leadership as a mother, leadership as a spouse, leadership as an employer or as an employee. We can be leaders in everything that we choose to do and do it with excellence, not perfection, but excellence.
I agree. And I really say it's about being a professional in everything you do. And this is something I teach my kids. Like I tell my son, I'm like, when you're cleaning the house and doing your chores, be professional in it. Pretend that I'm going to walk through the house with a white glove. And he's like, oh, mom, you know, he's 15, right? And this one day he did it that way. He got in a little bit of trouble. So, you know, the chores heightened a little bit and he cleaned so thoroughly. And afterwards he said, Mom, why do I feel so good? And I said,
Self-esteem.
because you didn't try and half-ass it. It takes more energy to half-ass something than it does to just do it. It takes more energy to think about how hard it's going to be, or can you do it? That effort that's connected is just exhausting. And it's the same thing with the ladies. Really, it's like, I say this, and they'll ask you, they'll say, what's the one thing that Jen always says? And she says, don't think, just do. just do.
Right.
You're going to make mistakes.
Well, why do you think Nike came up with that brand line? Just do it, because it's the most powerful thing that we can do is just do it.
Yes. And it's funny because I do a whole marketing seminar and I actually use Nike as an example. And at the time when they were coming up with just do it, I mean, they were disruptors. They were disruptors, and they put all their eggs in one basket with Jordan, as we know. We saw the movie. They just kept going for it, and that same philosophy just needs to apply to the entrepreneur and what we're doing. Because I think to be an effective leader, truly, it's not about giving orders. It's not about saying, "Hey, follow me here." It's about how do you instill in others that competency and that confidence so that they can go out there and affect more change. So really, I'm trying these leaders so that they can go help and then they can help others. And I feel like that ripple effect is the only chance we have to really kind of get a wake-up call on this planet.
Yeah. What's the coolest story you've seen out of anybody who's come your way?
Oh man, there's been, I only launched in November. And so just in a short amount of time, it's amazing to me what each one has gone through. Each person has gone through something different. I would say there's this one woman who is an artist. She has 4 children, pretty close in age. Every 2 years she was having kids, and she's an incredible artist. Yep. And she hadn't sold a painting. I think she sold 1 painting in the last 6 years. And we worked together on the marketing strategy, which was we really handled her surveys. Most people who do their own marketing don't survey. And so they're always guessing. That's why they're trying to do everything and throwing it up against the wall. And that's why when you see all these ads, they're saying, post 6 times. No, post 5 times a day. No, do this. No, do that. They don't know. But it's actually really simple. Just survey and find out what's needed and wanted from the group of people you want to sell to. So we did that. And we did 1 post for her. And she's an incredible artist. She sold 6 paintings in 4 days, which was phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah. And what was even more incredible is that they had been getting some financial help from her father-in-law, and he had all of a sudden passed away. And so now she had a little bit of this business starting. And so now she's doing about $30,000 a month doing her art and still being a mom and still being available because we priced it correctly, right? We priced it correctly. She was selling stuff for hundreds of dollars. Now we're selling it for thousands of dollars because it's really well worth it. And she
undervalued herself. Back to your point.
Undervalued herself, even though she was really scared to do it. But she's like, oh my God, they're buying. I said, I know. That's the way it works. So that was a really beautiful story.
Isn't that is a beautiful story. And it just goes to show the purpose was there, but the execution and the goal and how to get there. And it just goes to show how important strategy is, right? And sometimes you've got to spend money to make money, and you have to invest in yourself. And like you said, do that research. And I think we shy away from that.
Yeah.
And not understanding the value of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I launched the business in November. And when I launched the business in November, by the way, I will be honest and let you know that there was $21 in my bank account. Okay. The savings went, and I woke up and said, well, game's on. I guess I better do a webinar. And I did a webinar, and I sold $9,000 in that one webinar. So guess what I did the next week? Another webinar.
Another one.
And 7 weeks later, I had profited $100,000. Now, all that money is reinvested back into my company, which some people might get a little scared. Oh, I need to pocket it away. And I was like, absolutely not. You have to reinvest in the business. So anyways,
Yeah, no, it's so interesting, but you do have to release fear, and you just have to go, as you said. I think you have so much to offer. Your story is just fascinating to me. And I just love seeing female leaders who just leap and take advantage of what is out there and presented to them, and then create based on that. And it's wonderful to see your rise through an industry and your ability to be a leader in it, and now your desire to want to help other women. And you rolled the dice on that. You clearly showed that, you didn't have the funds there and that you were kind of going on a wing and a prayer. But when you do things that are, I think, service-based like that, I think that we were all designed to give back in some capacity. And when you choose to do that and act on that servitude seed, that you're richly rewarded. And I am fully convinced that you will be, Jenna. And I just want to pass along how anybody can find you. Should they want to talk to you or learn more about your services, where can people go?
Yes. So jennacapozzi.com, which some people might have a difficulty spelling Capozzi. So I know you're going to drop the link, but also
Yes.
Retreats with Jenna is another way to find me. And that really connects people right up to the retreats, which also will get them to the website, but that's a little bit easier to remember. And I do have a gift for anybody listening. It's called Lead with Jenna, and it's a downloadable, helps people find their goals and their purposes, and they can start working on some branding and some messaging right away. It's about a 12-page, walk you through workbook, but I just wanted to offer that to anybody who's listening, and that will help them get started.
That's so wonderful. And we will provide links below for anybody who's interested in your website, the downloadable, the retreat. How often do you do your retreats, by the way?
So about every 2 months, but I'm growing the platform to be every month so that other leaders can actually do retreats, but we'll back them up and do all the work for them. I will personally do about 6 to 8 a year. But then if you wanted to do a retreat, then you could do one, and we would, back you up and create the platform for you. And I have locations all over the world. We did Australia. We just came back from Georgia, and now we're about to go to Ohio and then Costa Rica to finish out the year. And so it's really, very cool. It's quite something.
And again, you're getting women out of their environments. And I will tell you, because I did a retreat in Austin, and there is something very, very powerful about getting out of that environment, but also being surrounded by women who are in the same place seeking similar things. The connection and the camaraderie and the friendships that form during those retreats and the vulnerability that takes place is priceless. So I'm glad that you're doing that. As somebody who's been a part of that, I can't speak highly enough about the change it can affect in a woman.
Absolutely. And that group that has come back from the retreat, they have their community in their group to help continue to support each other through their endeavors, because you come back to life and it can get a little funny, and you just have to keep pushing. So
it can get icky.
It can get a little funny. You have to keep going.
You need your safety net. No, it's so good. Well, Jenna, thank you. Thank you for coming on Over 50 and Flourishing and for sharing your story. But most importantly, thank you for helping women and creating change and empowering them to live their best life in their second half of life. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. I was very excited to be on this podcast, and everything that you're doing and sharing your stories and your podcast. I'm hooked. I've listened to 3 just this morning, so I'm going to push it with my group as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing me with them. Thank you, Jenna. So good to have you. I really enjoyed that conversation with Jenna today. Just such a delightful, delightful woman. And who doesn't want to be on the receiving end of somebody who wants to give back? If you are enjoying this podcast, and I really, really hope that you are, and you're watching on YouTube, please click the subscribe button, subscribe to my channel. You'll get notified every time I release a podcast on Monday or a YouTube video on Thursday. Always feel free to comment below what you thought about today's episode, conversations that you'd like to see me have, and maybe people you'd like to see me have those conversations with. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you know what I ask for: RRSS, rate, review, subscribe, and share. That's a little Texas twang in there. Those things are important. They help to build Over 50 and Flourishing, grow the community. And again, it's sharing content with those women in your life that you love and who you think can benefit from this type of messaging. But I wish you all the best. Go out, have a bold and blessed week, and I will see you next time. Bye. Let's face it, our hair gets thinner as we age, and not everybody wants to use products with chemicals in it to help with hair regrowth. If you're looking for a more natural route but results driven, let me introduce you to Vegamore, and it makes sticking to my hair routine easier, and I'm finally getting the results that I have been wanting: thicker, fuller, healthier looking hair. Vegamore products are 100% cruelty free, and they are never formulated with those potentially harmful chemicals like parabens or hormones. So easy to use. I use the Grow Hair Serum, and I use it in the morning when I'm styling my hair before I kind of blow it out and get ready for work. You can even do it at nighttime after you've showered and before you're blow dry. It's really up to you, but the key is consistency. When you stay consistent, you will see results in about 3 months. And when you sign up for the monthly subscription, you get 1 bottle or you can get 3 bottles sent. Obviously, the more you order, the more you save. Fun fact here, Vegamore sells a bottle of Grow Hair Serum every 15 seconds on their website. That's how good this stuff is. Elevate your hair wellness routine this year with Vegamore. For a limited time, get 20% off your first subscription order by going to vegamore.com/over50 and use code over50 at checkout. That's vegamore.com/over50. Code over50 to save 20% on your first order. vegamor.com/over50. Code over50.